Free bleeding is essentially when you don't use any tampons or pads or any menstrual cups or any diva cups, period underwear, or nothing while you're on your cycle during your bleeding period of your menstruation. So when I say free bleeding, that's just essentially what I'm talking about, is finding a way to maneuver bleeding while still living in the world, quite frankly. So when I first started free bleeding, it would be just from, I don't feel like wearing anything, and it wasn't really organized. So I decided to start doing research these past few cycles about free bleeding. And I basically started to find that there was little information, especially about what to wear or how to go about it, because there's an intuitive practice within free bleeding, as your menstrual cycle will always be, as most things that you do in your life will always be. However, there was just no guidance whatsoever, making me realize just how little women even consider free bleeding. So the reasons I was looking into it was because I don't really feel comfortable with like the period underwear rubbing against me all day. I don't wear pads anymore because of fragrances, and I haven't worn tampons in years because it can clog up my yoni. And on top of that, it's just like more fragrances inside of my actual vagina. To be honest, I don't know what I can say and what I can't say, but YouTube be pretty loose anyway. So boom, like I also didn't like menstrual cups because they hurt. They actually really hurt. Tampons already hurt. Pads and period underwear is already irritating and painful. But diva cups and then the IUD inserts, like all of those things, it was just too much. And it's not natural, to put that as plainly as it can possibly be. Like, I'm looking to be more natural and just more cohesive with who I am already as a human being. So free bleeding was just the biggest option and the best option. And another thing I would like to try is living by a river or some sort of body of water that flows, where I can just sit in the river whenever I need to bleed and spend camping every few weeks as my cycle is starting. So already for a beginner, for like to introduce it, since this is my personal journey, I'm getting up in there because it's not enough people talking about it. My cycle is fairly light. I don't bleed heavy unless I'm going through a lot of stress or have been eating improperly throughout the week. And on top of that, I only bleed for about 2 or 3 days, 5 at the most. Like I'm already spotting by day 3 type of energy when it comes to me and my yoni and my cycle. And it really did not, it was always pretty light, but it definitely just shifted when I was on my vegan journeys and just cooking for myself more and reducing my stress and learning about herbs and drinking my raspberry leaf tea, drinking my, I'm forgetting the word, dandelion leaf tea. Dandelion leaf is that girl. If you want a better relationship with your yoni, I recommend those, and hibiscus. And there's actually just so many more that are just gonna help you with cramping, help you with the entire process of menstruating throughout the month. So for starters, this is just a fun fact. This last cycle, it started a few hours before I was to release the bamboo combs. That actually, I'm gonna plug that in. You can watch the documentary now. So can't even use words for it, you know? So by close, I had just woken up. I was already in like loungewear, pajamas, or what have you. When I found out I was on my cycle though, I wound up just sitting on the toilet at first, just trying to bleed out what all the first wave was, and also trying to figure out, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Because also I've been traveling, and where I'm at now, I haven't brought any period underwear from the States, and the period products here are not it. Like I said, I already don't use pads, I don't use tampons anyway. So yeah, I was kind of just left in the hole of free bleeding is the way to go. And I'd already set the intention of doing it last month. So the fact that this month it came around even without me putting too much thought into it is just another sign that this is where I should be and what I should be doing. So the clothes I chose once I finally started putting on clothes was just this long black skirt, and that helped me with just appearance, because I felt comfortable too. The skirt is stretchy. I can like sit crisscross applesauce and the skirt still cover everything. And it was also, because it was black, if I did bleed through my skirt, I wouldn't feel self-conscious. Although I did stay home anyway, but it's still just like, this was the only skirt I wanted to wear, and now it's bled through. Say it was like a white skirt or even blue, you know, anything, I could have been like in my head like, dang, I'm walking around with the blood on me. And that would have been something on my mind, because I already had in mind that maybe I would bleed through to my clothes. So I was just like, I'll just rock with it. Which I wound up not doing at all, because every time that I felt the need to bleed, which it would be a feeling and it would require a connection with my womb, me listening to the signs, because there are always signs, and taking heed to the signs. I was not ever bleeding on my clothes. I would just be like, oh, it's time for me. I called it the pot. I was like, it's time for me to sit on the pot. So I didn't have a bowl here. I wound up using a pot. That's also why I call it a pot. This like soup pot, and I like put a blanket around the brim so that way I could like have cushion, and kind of like those donut hole things that you put on the toilet when you sit on the toilet too long. Basically, like, yeah, I had the comfort. I put 2 pillows behind my back so I could like lean onto the headboard, and I just bled until I didn't have to bleed anymore. And then I wiped when I needed to wipe. There's also a bidet here, so I was using the bidet to just like rinse and then dry off. And every once in a while there would be like blood in between my thighs, but when you thick, it don't really run unless you like moving too much. So okay, side note. And then for my womb connection, I'm not even gonna hold y'all. I did do a meditation either the day before or the day before that. And I'll also tag the meditation because it helped a lot. I wound up journaling how I felt with my yoni and just getting to know her from a different light, because the meditation asks different questions and I've asked myself before within those meditations, and it was really helpful to introduce that my cycle was coming anyway, because it was just a giant clearing. Especially as I was saying, I have just released the project, and it's a project I've been working on for years now, had the idea for even longer, so it just felt so, you know, and the womb connection was deep, my intuition was strong. I even made myself hibiscus tea like in the rising, not knowing that my cycle was not, because you don't know, but you know, you're like, I'm gonna bleed soon, or like, where's she at? Okay, you know, but you don't know. So I was drinking hibiscus tea, and I just put like, when I sat down to actually sip it, because I had the tea but I hadn't been drinking it. I finally sat down to drink it. I'm like, do I have to pee or something? Because you feel like a wetness or whatever, and it was the blood, and I was like, oh my god, of course this is why I'm acting like this. I'm on my freaking cycle. So the womb connection is so important, because if you don't listen to the signs, or you're not listening to what your body needs and wants, like, and trying to decipher the messages as best as possible, you'll wind up like bleeding through your clothes, bleeding through your sheets, or what have you, and just not giving yourself the rest when you need rest, and action when you need action, medicine when you need medicine, or what have you. So indoors, because I was indoors, it was real easy for me to just sit on the toilet or sit on my pot and bleed through to that. But when I was outside, I wound up just putting a napkin in between my thighs, which we've all been there at least once or twice, and it's not something I want to continue doing. So I am just really being more conscious of using my cycle as a time to be reserved and be to myself confidently, because I'm allowed to, and I'm even supposed to. So, when I do go outside, I intend to be, like I said, in the flowing river or on the earth and just bleeding to Gaia. As far as odor, there was none. Crazy enough, like, there was no, like, oh my God, what's going on in here? Like, and if anything, it smelled like just blood, like from a cut, like if you cut your hand while you're cooking. And that felt like an honor to me because, again, my body has transformed so much. I remember when I was younger, people would be like, you need to shower or do this or change your pad more often. And it may have been like the first time I had my pad, like the first hour I've had a pad on or something like that. And of course, people were telling me respectfully. It was just a telltale sign for me that it was time for a change because I hadn't been eating good. I hadn't been taking care of my emotional well-being. Hadn't been drinking enough water. Speaking of, hadn't been drinking enough water. I hadn't been working out like with intention of really getting to know my body. I was working out to try and change my body, like to look more like what I thought I should look like instead of just growing into my skin. So it was all these different changes that I made since then, where I'm like doing yoga to intuitively stretch with what my body needs and actually catering to my emotions, catering to the ideas that I have for myself, the plans that I have for myself, and like caring for myself. And it reflected in my cycle because even my sister, my roommate, was in the room and I was just like, oh, I apologize, like, because my pot is out. And she was like, I don't even smell anything, like, you're good. So, yeah, that's something to think about too. I know also when you have a pad on, everything is like sitting in one spot constantly, and the mixing it with the cloth, like that can also cause odor itself more so than the blood itself. It's like the way it's drying and the way it's reacting to the bacteria in the cloth or the way it's hitting the air versus like in the pot. It was a big pot, so it had a lot of room to just dry up and spread out and not really be stuck in one place and like, because it's literally a dead egg. Like, when we really think about what period blood is coming with. So, yeah. That's as far as that for odors. And then, if you are worried about smells though, definitely, I was thinking about freaking tea. Not even tea, but yoni steaming. I was thinking about yoni steaming in between. Like, I would sit on the pot and then sit on the yoni steam. Like, that's what I was thinking about doing. I hadn't done it because it was just too much moving around. But that's something that could help with the smell in the room. You know, burning your candles, burning your incense, opening the window, letting the breeze in anyway. Those things can aid that. And again, like, if it's your private time, like, it really wouldn't be too many people that's around you that's like, what's that smell? Because it's like, this is for you and you, for you to document what you've grown with this month and what you intend to do the next month. So as far as teas, I recommend things that are soothing and relaxing, but not necessarily like things that'll help you bleed heavily. So like chamomile is good if it's like a light dosage, but chamomile thins your blood. It's a blood thinner, so it's honestly not too safe to be heavily on chamomile. And then lavender is good for relaxing. I was drinking Blue Lotus too. That was helping with my intuition, helping with my connection to my body. And I recommend herbs that are good for like constipation and good for just release. So stinging nettle, cascara sagrada, peppermint, rosehip is good. Dandelion leaf, like I said earlier, hibiscus, of course. And I used to just I was making sorrel for like weeks. That whole last cycle as well. Like, I just had it in my mind. I was either making hibiscus tea or I had the sorrel in the fridge. And I was just drinking that with my tea and like pouring it in. So, yeah, those are some teas that are off the top of my head. if I think of any more blends, I'll add it because yeah, using medicine is really like a natural medicine more so than Motrin and the Advil or what have you is what will really take everything else over the bar because herbs are most adaptogens, all adaptogens are genuinely fixing the cells within your body to remember what they do and why they function the way they function versus Advil and Tylenol and Motrin and all those other pills are just sedating symptoms and numbing your body to its already pre-made signals. So it's basically telling your body, oh, you can put yourself on hold. I got it now. So that's why you need to constantly keep popping it. It's like, oh my God, my head hurts again. Let me go get this Advil. Versus taking like a peppermint and lavender tincture, and now your mind is remembering how to release whatever it may need to release, and you're able to navigate through what had your mind in stagnation anyway. So that's something to consider and keep in mind. As far as comfort, I just had this big cozy blanket that I would wrap over my legs when I was sitting on the pot and then just lay down when I felt like laying down. I was trying to move because you shouldn't be too still when you're on your cycle. Yes, it's a time for resting. However, stagnation can keep you clotted or like the blood won't flow. So a nice little walk around. I was doing some light stretching, nothing too heavy, and maybe some dancing. It was actually quite a bit of dancing because again, the release of these combs, man, had me in a celebratory mood. So just allow myself to feel what I felt and not shy away from myself. Um, yeah, that's all else I can think of off the top of my dome. I finished my notes too. So, re-bleeding. Did I even talk about clothes for real? Like, something else about clothes, though, that I didn't mention is that muumuus, like those big gappy dresses like the aunties be wearing, that is a move every time, every single time. And apparently they're real cheap. They're like $1 in certain places. So you can even check their stores. I found quite a few muumuus at their stores for less than $2. And you can just be cozy up in those. It's easy to wash. You can hand wash them and then put them out to dry in the sun or whatever. And yeah, clothes, like definitely open clothes, like long skirts, wide skirts, loose dresses, nothing too constricting on your body that keeps you feeling tight and like swaddled in a negative way, like restrained.